Okay, you need to turn into pages 8 and 9 of your notes packet. Today we're going to talk about the Crusades, and we're going to be looking at what caused the Crusades, what are the Crusades, and what happened during the Crusades, and the lasting effects from the Crusades in medieval Europe. Okay, so if I end up going too fast for you, then please pause the video and rewind it. You can move at your own pace, okay? All right, so we're going to look here on page 8, Europe before the Crusades. When survival and battle consume life, new technologies, art, and literature are no longer important. Okay, we were talking earlier in the chapter about how the Middle Ages also end up being the Dark Ages because society had to stop all of the learning and progress that they were making just to be able to survive from being attacked and to survive and to get food for the next day. So none of these other things are important anymore. Muslim culture had an advanced level of art and technologies compared to Europe. The Roman Catholic Church. Never was there a time when the church was so powerful in Western civilization. Since there was no struggle or no strong empires or kingdoms, the church had the respect and power. Popes were more powerful than kings. We've done several activities on that, stating how the popes were more powerful than the kings because they determined, or it was believed they determined, your salvation, whether or not you were part of the church. Could you go to heaven or would you go to hell if you were not part of the church? So they were very, very powerful in medieval Europe. There was no one strong empire, so the church became an empire in and of itself, even though it did not have territory. Reasons for the Crusades. Muslims conquered the Holy Land, Jerusalem. The Byzantine emperor asked for military aid because the Muslims were a threat to Constantinople. It also became too dangerous for Christians to go to Jerusalem. We're going to find out here that Jerusalem is a very, very important place for all three religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And we're going to find out why here in just a second. Pope Urban II wanted to free Jerusalem from Jews and Muslims. The Pope also wanted to unite all Christians in Europe. The Pope wanted to free Jerusalem from the Jews and the Muslims because Christians weren't able to travel to Jerusalem, to this holy land that was important to them, because they were being attacked when they did come. So the Pope wanted to make it so that the Christians could also travel to this land. So in order to do that, we've got to declare war on the Jews and the Muslims. The Pope also wanted to unite all the Christians in Europe. So not just the Roman Catholic Church and the Western Empire, but remember when the church split and you've got the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Eastern Empire, which later becomes the Byzantine Empire. So he wanted to unite all Christians, not just those in the Roman Catholic Church, but all Christians in Europe. Reasons for the Crusades. The knights, lords, and kings volunteered for crusades for 3 reasons. 1, religious zeal for God. 2, hope of obtaining land and riches, gold. And number 3, desire for adventure, which was glory. So the 3 G's, God, gold, and glory. So knights, lords, and kings wanted to fight in the crusades for God, for gold, and for glory. So here we come to the importance of Jerusalem. For Christians, Jerusalem is the site of Jesus's life, death, and resurrection. So it is a holy city for Christians. And a lot of times Christians take a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to see the sites where Jesus had been. It's also important for the Jews because the Torah established their claim to the Holy Land. It's believed the Holy Land was a gift from God to Abraham. Then King David, as in David and Goliath, King David brought the ark containing the original Torah here. King David's capital and Solomon's temple were also located in Jerusalem. So the Jews have a lot of history here in Jerusalem, and rightly so. They want to keep Jerusalem for themselves. The importance of Jerusalem to the Muslims is that the Quran establishes claim to both Jews and Muslims are people of Abraham. Well, in that fact, all three religions are descendants of Abraham: the Jews, the Muslims, and Christians. Muslims believe God's gift to the Holy Land was from Abraham was also for the Muslims, and the site of Muhammad's ascension into heaven. So again, another important city for Islam. The Crusades were a series of battles between Christians and Muslims in the Middle East. They were battling for the territory of Jerusalem. Crusades originated as a way of recapturing the Holy Land from Muslim Turks and to prevent the Muslims' conquest of the Byzantine Empire. We haven't talked about this a lot this year, but there's always been an exchange of power amongst the monotheistic religions in the world. For a while, the only monotheistic religion was Judaism. Then along comes Christianity, and it starts to spread, and there are a lot of people that are Christians. Then comes Islam, and it starts to spread, and a lot more people become Islamic or Muslims. So you see a power shift in the world as far as which religion is more popular at that moment. Here at this time, you've got Christianity, which was imposed by the emperor, saying that this is going to be the official religion of the Roman Empire, and for hundreds of years is practiced as such, as an official religion, even once Europe was broken up into the kingdoms that we're talking about today in the Middle Ages. So here we're fighting for a power struggle over the Holy Land and to keep the Muslims out of the Byzantine Empire, because again, the Byzantine Empire is predominantly Christian. Crusades. Thousands of knights and barbarian soldiers united under Christianity and attacked Muslims and Jews in Turkey and Jerusalem to try to regain the Holy Land for Christians. Muslims viewed Europeans as barbarians. This is important here, that thousands of knights and barbarian soldiers united under Christianity, right? Because we've been talking about how all of these kingdoms are attacking each other to try to win territory to make their kingdom bigger than the other. Well, here they have to form an alliance because they all have Christianity in common. So they've got to form an alliance against the Muslims and attack the Muslims so that they can win the Holy Land back. There were 7 crusades total, which lasted about 2 centuries, so almost 200 years, from 1095 to 1291. First crusades began in 1059, and the last one was in 1272. Crusaders marched to Constantinople, killing and looting on the way there. Crusaders took Jerusalem in 1099. So in that first crusade, Crusaders took Jerusalem. That means they won. So the Christians won Jerusalem during the first crusade. Let's find out what happens in the other 6 crusades. Future crusades saw Jerusalem falling into Muslim hands, and in 1187, the 4th crusade to retake the Holy Land sees Constantinople sacked. If you know anything about football, you know when the quarterback gets sacked, that means they get taken down and they're out of play. So when the Holy Land sees Constantinople being sacked, that means that it was taken out of play. Constantinople was taken down. It was invaded and ruined. More failed crusades, and then the final crusade was a children's crusade that that also was a failure. So all of the other crusades, the other 6, after that initial win, fell into the Muslim hands. The Muslims defeated the Christians each time. So Christians no longer have Jerusalem. The effects of the Crusades. Increased interest in trade to acquire new goods such as silks, spices, ivory, and pearls from Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Remember, we were not trading as much as we had been before for a very, very long time because we were worried about surviving the next day. So now we're seeing an increase in that trade again and the different types of goods that are there, because for 200 years, the Europeans and the Muslims were around each other, or people from the Middle East were around each other. So their cultures are starting to blend. So we're seeing